First, hi, everybody. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Eric Wellman, Simsbury's first selectman. Jackie Bados, who is liaison to the Tourism Committee, wish she could be here tonight, but she had a conflict. Dominique, I will defer to you, but since the Tourism Committee technically doesn't have a chair, do you mind if I sort of informally walk us through this very brief agenda?
No, I would be delighted if you do it.
Okay. I believe there were minutes that were sent out, and I think that's the first item on the agenda, just to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Have people seen those?
Yes.
Does anyone have any feedback on the minutes?
No.
Okay, then they will stand. Thank you. So what I really wanted to do was to pull this group together to talk about the future of the Tourism Committee. And I appreciate you being with me this afternoon. I realize that it's been more than half a year since the Tourism Committee has formally met, I believe. And I hope that everyone is doing as well as possible during this absolutely extraordinary, challenging year. What I wanted to do was to bring the group together to give you an update for my vision on how I see moving tourism forward in Simsbury once the pandemic lifts and we have, again, a tourist industry. And I wanted you to hear this from me directly so you can share your thoughts and ask questions. And I'll also be putting this in an email that I'll send to all of the members of tourism, but I didn't want you just to get an email from me. So what I wanted to share was that I'm going to recommend to the Board of Selectmen at the end of 2021 that we sunset the Tourism Committee. And I know that the Tourism Committee has been without a chair for some time, and that got me thinking about how best to continue to move this work forward into the future. And to be clear, I think that tourism is an important component of economic development in Simsbury. But today, we're blessed with organizations and infrastructure to support tourism that we didn't have when the Tourism Committee was first formed. Things like, Morgan at the Chamber and Main Street, and the Economic Development Commission, and even just professional management in Town Hall that's helping to coordinate and guide some of this work. I know that there are things that the committee has started or has built that I think are important to continue. The first one that comes to mind is the tourism Facebook page that Dominique runs, which is one of the top Facebook pages in Simsbury. I know Sherry serves on the Central Regional Tourism District, and I hope that she or someone from this committee can continue to represent Simsbury in that capacity. I know that there's been interest on the Tourism Committee about possibly establishing a campground in town, and that's work that I've been really interested in, and I'd like to see if we could accelerate, possibly under the guidance of the Economic Development Commission. So I don't see this work going away, but falling under a different umbrella. The last thing that I wanted to share is that anyone on this call who wants to continue to serve our wonderful town, anyone who wants to be involved and continue giving back, I will work with you to find a board or committee that needs you. And I will never, ever turn anyone away who wants to serve our town. And finally, before I give up the floor for your thoughts and questions, I wanted to point out that I am only one vote on the Board of Selectmen, and there could be others on the board who feel differently. But I really wanted you to hear these thoughts from me personally before I discuss them in open session with the board. I just thought that was the right thing to do. So let me pause there and hear your thoughts and questions and concerns.
I can't hear anybody. I can't talk.
Oh, I hear you.
You can hear me?
Yeah, we got you, Sherry.
We hear you, Sherry.
Oh, cool. All right. Okay. I did want to say, as far as the Facebook page goes, Dominique had put me on as an admin because when she was out of the country, she needed someone to do it. So I am on there if there's backup. I don't know if I could handle it myself, but I would be willing to, if she's not going to continue it, to do something with that.
Thanks, Sherry. Dominique, is the Facebook page something that you would intend to continue. I know we've had some preliminary conversations about that.
I would be happy to continue it as long as I'm in contact with people and getting information. It's something that I can do that's fairly non-stressful, but I'm happy to give it up if somebody else would rather do it.
Okay, I just think it's just one of the most impactful pages in Simsbury because of the number of people that follow it, and I see the the posts are reposted more than others, and I really I think it's an important thing to keep going in some capacity. I appreciate that, Dominique.
I have something to add about that. I know that we have a social media policy for the boards and committees. Is that something that we could circulate if we keep that going? And I'm just wondering about that going without a board attached to it. Does that change anything?
That's a really good question. I've had some preliminary conversations with Maria, town manager, and I don't think that she has any concerns about keeping that going, even if the tourism committee doesn't formally exist. It could still be a town, sort of a town-owned Facebook page.
Just to chime in here, I had a really fantastic meeting with Dominique, and to kind of echo what you're saying, Eric, I think that it's a great idea to look at the organizations that are currently in place now that weren't in existence before when this committee was formed, and have them each take a little bit of a bigger piece of this pie forward. At the Chamber office, we're also the visitor center for the town, and I know Simsbury Main Street Partnership does a lot for tourism as well. So I'd like to continue on that path, and I had a great conversation with Dominique about what needs to continue in terms of tourism, what was successful, what needs work, and she provided me with a wonderful outline of what she'd like to see done in the future regarding tourism in the area. So I plan on, obviously that's kind of on the back burner right now with everything going on, but I plan on saving all of that information and putting a committee together, whether it's with community members or just with the chamber in the future, in terms of projects that we can really move on and build up in the area.
Thanks, Morgan. Yeah, I think that the chamber, as goes without saying, is just, it has been and no doubt is going to continue to be a critical piece of the tourism picture.
Mm-hmm.
And with both Morgan and with your staff, and I think it's the place to be with Main Street and the Economic Development Commission. There are all these things, that, especially the Chamber's current makeup is different than it was 25 years ago. And there are all kinds of people who are doing tourism things who are really good at it. And we all did our best, but I think it's the way to go. The other thing that I don't know whether Elizabeth has mentioned it yet, but she would like to stay on the whatever Airbnb committee, whatever the proper name.
Oh yeah, so I that's another thing. Absolutely, no doubt.
Yeah, the short-term rental working group. We're trying to put together a I don't know what the legal term is, guidelines or
Yeah, this would actually be an ordinance.
No, that's right. Yeah, an ordinance for short-term rentals in town, and we're pretty close to getting it to a final draft in March, but we've been frozen since then.
Luckily, I mean, not luckily, but like we haven't obviously had much of an Airbnb market in the current climate we're in. But that's something that I really want to take across the finish line. And
yeah, I think it's important because a lot of people are impacted. Well, yeah. I guess the people who are impacted are really impacted, I guess. So I think we should do something about that.
But again, absolutely. I want you to stay on it if you're interested. I'm glad.
So, but you're saying the tourism committee would still exist if we're not really doing anything until through the whole of next year?
Well, I guess the way I'm looking at it is, first, I want to make sure that I have a full handle on everything the tourism committee both is doing actively and has advocated for. And Dominique did provide me with a really nice document that summarizes that. And I want to make sure that the things that are in flight and this group things are worth continuing are that there is another group or organization, among those that I've mentioned, that's able to pick up and carry that ball. my thought in waiting until the end of 2021 is in part to ensure that there's that smooth transition. But I don't think that there is any imminent reason to end the tourism committee. I just want to make sure that we're making the best use of volunteers' time. And we have a lot of different kinds of infrastructure in place that we didn't have 20, 25 years ago or more when the tourism committee was first founded. And I know this goes without saying, but I think I should say it. It's not a reflection on anyone or the performance of the committee at all. It's simply that the reasons why some committees were formed a long time ago, the landscape has changed. And that's what I feel has happened in this instance.
I sent the committee a list of the things that have happened since the tourism committee was formed. Not that the tourism committee created all of them, but the town is completely different than it was 25 years ago. There was no Bridge of Flowers. There wasn't all kinds of things. So we are in a different place, of course, with the tourism committee's help and some through private organizations and other means. But I think we're in pretty good shape, and we have Main Street, and we have the Chamber of Commerce, and we have Leslie, and we have Morgan, who are working hard, and we have Sarah, and we have the Economic Development Commission. And right now we have a tourism committee member on there, and I think maybe it would be good if we had a couple of other people whose strong interest was tourism on the Economic Development Commission. What do you think, Sherry?
No, I completely agree. I mean, my biggest concern with tourism and some of the other committees, I think, is that there is some overlap between different organizations, and yet we're not connecting between the different groups. So I think that going to what Eric says, we're not utilizing ourselves as effectively as we can. And some of the things that is embodied in tourism, I don't think is exactly the same as what Main Street Partnership might be doing, or the Chamber, or economic development. I think some of what tourism is all about probably got under the guise of the 350th committee. I think a lot of what they've done kind of mirrored what maybe tourism would have been involved in the past. So, I'm really anxious to stay involved, but I want to find a way to be sure that there's connectivity between the different groups and people are not recreating the wheel and everybody trying to do the same thing independently.
Sherry, I think that's a very good point. I mean, that's the one downside I see to doing this, is that there is nobody there's no one organization that will be in charge of communicating with all of them. We haven't mentioned the bike committee yet. They are a major focus as well.
Yeah, actually, to that point, one concept that Missy from the Performing Arts Center has shared with us that was really successful when she worked in Hartford was the concept of a hospitality task force. And I don't know exactly what form that would take here, but the concept is that it could be monthly, it could be quarterly. Every organization that has anything to possibly do with tourism basically gets together and they compare notes and they look at areas where they could work together, where they might be overlapping. And it's just that touch point to make sure that everyone is rowing in the same direction. And that's something that I've been really interested in doing over the past year or so. I just haven't found a group that is able and willing to own that.
The Chamber is willing to do that. So if you think it's appropriate, we can certainly take ownership of that and make sure that these groups are communicating. We'll set a schedule in terms of putting these meetings together so that we can all have that point of contact. And we've also been planning on elaborating the Chamber calendar to include not only our Chamber member events and our own organization events, but all of those going on in the area. So I think that is a very cohesive way of including that tourism piece.
That is such music to my ears that you will or may be able to pick up this ball, because this is something I've been really interested in for a while. So let's definitely connect on this.
So after
Perfect.
I met with Morgan last summer, that was when I decided that I thought we could do it without a tourism committee, because Morgan and Leslie are both so tuned into tourism and willing, and Morgan really feels like it's one of the things that they should be doing. So that was when when nobody stepped forward to do it, that was when I made the decision that I think the committee should be sunsetted. And I was thrilled with my conversation with Morgan.
Right.
I don't want tourism to fall apart.
No, I hope you hear that tourism is important to me.
And very important.
Tourism has been a little slow now, but 16 years ago, I joined 16 years ago. This is Pat. And when I joined 16 years ago, we were very active and we had a lot of things going for us. And it seems that it slightly has drifted away, and I hate to see it go. And now I have health problems, but there's nothing wrong with my desire and energy and need to get out there and work and do something. And I feel that we've lost a lot of our promotional things that maybe stand like old school, but they aren't, like Visitors Day and the participation in the September Fest, having our presence known there, presence known everywhere we can have our presence known, just to remind people that we are there and to promote everything that's new and going on in town. I think that Morgan's going to do an extraordinary job of helping, and I really and having a great part in this, and I'm thrilled to see that, since I am just celebrating one of my senior birthdays. So I have to be honest with you, but I'm willing to get out there any place anybody wants to drive me. I'm going to be there with my tourism hat on, promoting the heck out of this place, and that's what I mean. I found a great deal when we had a flood in my condo, and I was forced to stay at the 1820 house for 4 whole months. And it was during the time we had the statues. It was last year before last, and the statues were a big draw. I could see it as the people were coming in. So that's my final word on the subject. This is how I feel about it.
Thank you, Pat. Well, the circumstances, I can't imagine how stressful. What a neat opportunity to stay right in the center of town like that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And the art trail really was amazing for local tourism. We received, I would say, upwards of 5 to 10 calls a day sometimes, depending on how the weather was. And we were referring these visitors to places to stay, places to eat,
Awesome.
other places to visit, because they were developing entire trips to the area around the art trail. So it's something we're definitely going to continue to do, whether it's the traditional sculptures we've done twice now, or we look to some other art type exhibit to really focus people on visiting the area and seeing everything else that Simsbury has to offer.
I really want to just reiterate one more time that anyone who wants to continue serving our town, please reach out to me. My email is out there. I'll give anyone my cell phone. I want to find a place for you to plug in your time and your energy and your passion. And I say this, and I don't mean this to sound like a platitude, but when you really look around at the great things we have in our town, almost all of it is because of volunteers who had a great idea and made it happen. So,
as far as tourism is concerned, I have to honestly say that I think that the queen of our tourism committee has always been, and always she will be, I'm sure, Dominique Avery. I think that the job she has done with Facebook and with everything that she has done is absolutely fantastic. And I think we owe her a great deal of credit that she's still aboard and still wanting to help here.
Yeah, you're here.
Thank you, Pat.
Hey,
Well, nobody
Eric,
can fill her shoes. So nobody can fill her shoes. That's why no one's stepping in.
Although it sounds like you may be volunteering.
No. One of the things, and I'm trying to figure out how to not temper this, but say this correctly. I think that some of the things the Chamber has done is absolutely phenomenal. I think the art trail was amazing. But tourism isn't, tourism encompasses it's recreation, it's entertainment, it's hospitality, it's economic development. It's a lot of things. And so while the chamber, I think, is the hugest piece of it, I don't think it's everything, because not every business owner or every entity in town that makes up what brings people in and contributes to our economic development is necessarily a member of the chamber. Or some of the small businesses can't necessarily afford to be part of the chamber and Main Street Partnership and all these other things. And the bike committee who's promoting trails, it's not like they're getting money for people that are on the trail. So I really think, going not to be redundant, but I really feel there's such a need for knowing which each one of these organizations do and how they can get their word out. For instance, Central Regional Tourism District, the money really for this past year seems to have been going to their advertising and marketing. So they're promoting all these different types of trails, a taco trail, a bear trail, a boutique trail, all these different things. And if you're part of these different groups and you don't know that tourism for those 65 communities that are combined has some way to advertise or promote something, then the word isn't getting out there. And if you do know, but you're part of chamber and you're part of Simsbury Partnership, then maybe one person from each group is already doing that work and getting that information out. So to me, it's like you almost need, just like Dominique collects the information that then goes on tourism, there needs to be like a person that collects and talks to these different groups, whether it's by phone or email or whatever, and gets the information out so there just is not so much duplication of effort. Anyway, off that soapbox.
Yeah, no, thanks,
Yeah,
Sherry.
so that's also exactly what I envision. So the chamber, what I'm seeing is the chamber kind of overseeing on a high level how this is going to evolve going forward. It doesn't mean that we're going to have exclusivity in terms of our members participating in a variety of tourism types. That's not how it would be handled whatsoever. It would just be preventing the duplication of, like you said, all of these things going on in separate calendars and separate postings. So we would just be that touch point for all of these different businesses to get together and advertise and promote what they have going on. And also, my perspective on what a chamber should be is not very traditional in a lot of ways. So I don't think a chamber organization should be focused on for-profit businesses only. It should embrace all of the small volunteer-based nonprofits in the area as well. It's about community enrichment, not only on a professional level, but on a residential level. So that's why I think the tourism piece really does fit nicely into our perspective of what the chamber should be.
Great, Morgan.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that, because I've felt that way for decades.
Yep, absolutely.
I
Sherry,
love that vision.
It's exactly what I mentioned before when I talked with Morgan and heard her views. It's what made me feel better about our disbanding. But Sherry, maybe you could talk about Terrafil, because that is one area that there's so much potential for, that things keep starting and not really getting going. And maybe people who are on the tourism committee now would be willing to work with Terrafil. What do you think?
We could sure use some help. I know we've been talking a lot. We're really excited about the traffic we got with the statue on the green this year. Maybe it's not the tens of thousands of numbers, but somebody, I guess, was able to track maybe around 700 or 800, people coming, and there's one person that had been very active in Terrafil that really wants to do something about the river, because we have a lot of natural resources in Terrafil that are amazing that people don't really know about, and because the Terrafil Association didn't really help promote that, so he's kind of spun off to another area. we're talking about trying to expand our membership. So I'm working on that. That's something that we have in the hopper for the next month or two. The Trinity Church is really trying to do a lot of community outreach, which is important as well. So there's a lot of people that are very interested in getting, more connectivity to town, and then also trying to get Parafill, more on people's radar. This year hurt a lot because we had planned on participating in River Day. We had been talking to Joe Buda about trying to get a sculpture or statue or something for his Trail of Thanks down here. There were a lot of things that we had planned, obviously, like other places that just, didn't happen. But we're working on getting more young blood involved as well. So, and I'm continuing with it. I stepped down from secretary and took over treasurer so that I would have more time to put into some of the subcommittees.
Sherry, if there are opportunities for town hall to assist where appropriate with TVA priorities, let's keep close on that.
Okay. Happy to.
If anyone has a position where they want someone to just be a promoter, the personality kid that does all the PR for the place, that would be me, because I find that's talking up the place is a great thing. That's why I believe we ought to extend ourselves and have a presence at every activity that's going on in town.
Thanks, Pat.
We
Any
should all
other-
have your energy.
Oh,
Whoa.
Hey, sorry, it's Charmaine. I was just about to speak. I touched my cell phone and flip, there you went. I was sorry about that. Those that you were watching visually. I just wanted to say that as far as I am the one on the Economic Development Commission, and we just had a call this afternoon, so this is my fourth Zoom call today. But how tourism used to go out and reach out to businesses, and we tried to find out their needs. The Economic Development Commission is actively doing that right now, reaching out to all the different types of businesses. So it is very much, tied with what tourism was doing before. And as I've told Dominic before, the Facebook page is fantastic. She does a great job. And, as far as the pandemic goes, it's about all you can do right now unless you wanted a paid digital campaign or something like that, but, it doesn't really make sense. So, the Facebook is the best thing we can do for just straight up tourism, as long as Dominic's willing, and it sounds like she is, to keep that going. And then have the other committees, take on some of the other elements, such as what Economic Development Commission is doing, reaching out to the businesses right now. So that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Charmaine. Yeah, that's a good connection.
I would like to see us have more availability of brochures out in everywhere, I should say, actually, because as I said when I was staying at the 1820 house, the brochures were flying off of the shelf there, and I started monitoring it because being on the tourism committee, I started watching what was going on, and people were coming in so interested and wanting to know all about the town that I wound up just giving little lectures around the town. But that I'm saying to you that I find that people who come in need to source to find out what we have. And a lot of them are surprised at what we have here. And we can tell them about future things going on. I think we need to spread the word verbally as best as we can, and this is the way we need to do it, but we need brochures to do it with. I know Dominic's been after a place to put the kiosk, and I think that's a very important thing that we need to pay attention to.
I think we should just station you at the 1820 house. That sounds like a great solution to me.
They were kidding me over there because I started holding court in the lounge, and it was drawing people.
Great.
But I found that's when I made that discovery of my own. I said, oh my God, I went back and told the committee, I said, I don't believe it. Pretty soon I had a crowd of people around waiting to hear what I had to say about Simsbury. And I couldn't tell them enough. I had brochures, and of course the statues were available at that time, and it was very, very popular.
Eric, one thing that that we do need is, number one, we need more brochures, but we also need somebody to keep the tourism site on the town site, the tourism location on the town site up to date. And I'm wondering whether maybe Leslie, is that something that you think you could do with the chamber?
Yeah, that's certainly something I can do.
So, I mean, you could work, I mean, we've done two different versions of the town website, but it really needs to be kept up, and it's with Rick Pisano, and somebody needs to be in charge of that.
Yeah,
You know,
I don't mind stepping up.
That
You know,
would be great.
if it's optimized for mobile, the
Exactly.
because it's interesting because I can't stand brochures. I want a good website or an app or something like that. So I would be the one looking for the website.
Right. So the tourism website, definitely, it's been, I think, 5 years since it was redone. Charmaine, is that when the change in the town website went in 5 years ago or 4 years ago?
Gosh, it was when I was on the Economic Development Task Force. So I think that's 5 or 6 years ago. I don't.
It definitely needs to be updated, and also so people can access it with their phones, which I don't know if they can do easily now. That would relieve my mind a lot, Leslie, if you would take that on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll add on that I'm on the technology task force, if that has any bearing here.
Oh,
Help.
Well, that would be great. Maybe you and Leslie could work on it together, because there's a lot of updates that need doing that I know nothing about.
yeah. These days, a 5-year-old website's just
Right.
old.
Right.
Yeah.
It might be something we can have a subcommittee work on too, if you wanted. I don't know what work needs to be done, but definitely.
Can I ask, when we used to have the cell phone tour in town,
Oh, yes.
I know we used to have that, and I don't know what the cost was associated with it, but
It was $10,000 a year. It was
I'm
ridiculous.
sorry, how much?
That's a lot of money.
It was huge.
Wow.
$10,000 a year. It was awfully
Oh,
hard.
that's a lot of money. I
Yeah.
guess what made me think of that was, did anybody other than me do the Granby Historic Stroll that they had this past month?
I didn't even know about it.
Me either.
No.
It was actually very cool, and I really enjoyed it, and I wish I had known about it earlier. But they had so it was pretty much almost all on Route 10. And so, there's a lot of historic houses. So it started at the Historic Society, and there was a placard in front of just, it's like the regular size, little, like almost the political signs of smaller, that size, like a placard in front of each one of the buildings that was on the stroll. And it had a picture of the house from its time period. And then it had a QR code that you could go and put your cell phone to the QR code, and then it would pull up all the history about that particular property. So it was kind of a then and now thing. And they had, I think it was 30, maybe 32 properties on it. I found it to be fascinating, and I did it in a 2-day period because the weather was bad. But there were a lot of people out doing it, and then people would see you out doing it, and then people would stop and ask you what you were doing. And I was thinking that would be really cool, in the historic district or in Terriffill, or I don't know. But anyway, I don't know if that's I can't imagine that it's as expensive as what the cell phone tour thing was that we had years ago, because I can't imagine for the 1 month that Granby did it that they would have spent that kind of money. And it wasn't businesses, it was, pretty much, private homes and everything. So I don't know who would have funded it or how it was funded. Pardon?
Sure. Was it audio? Did it have?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't audio. You just had a QR code, and you scanned it with your phone, and then up popped the history. It was very cool. Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. Cool.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, that maybe I would contact someone from the Granby Historic Society and see who put it together, and see if that kind of concept could be used for something, either for an event or for an ongoing thing in town. I just thought it was, especially during the pandemic, I think it's like, it didn't cost anything. And, we wound up getting a bite to eat. We actually went to a couple stores, that were nearby after we finished. And, so I can see it doing something similar to what the art trail would do. Only maybe not.
I'm curious to know how that was advertised because I never heard of it. Too bad.
Well, the weird thing is I don't know, to be honest with you, because the way I found it was I drove by and I saw a couple of the placards when I was driving. And so I stopped and looked and read. And then when I was driving in front of the Historical Society, there was a placard there. And then I went online and looked it up and printed information, and that's kind of how I found it.
Wow.
But it was really, and after I found it, I had a couple friends go do it, and then they had a couple friends go do it, and it was, was a good, healthy, nice little walk. And
that's great. I wish I knew about it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I think it was, I want to say it ended like October 29th and maybe started like about approximately 30 days before. It was almost a full month.
Well, anyone who has not been down to the Performing Arts Center and seen the Simsbury History Walk, it's pretty neat.
Yeah, I love that too. That was fun. They did a good job.
I stood at the very end around the year 2017 when I was elected, and it was humbling to see the amount of history that came before me, or before any of us, frankly. So, is there anything else that anyone wanted to add or share tonight before we adjourn? Again, thank you. Thank you, thank you. I'm going to send an email to the full tourism committee so that they get the same message that I shared with you tonight. Dominic, do you have the distribution for everybody? I assume you do.
Yeah, Tom has it.
And Tom does. Okay, I'll reach out to Tom. Great. I hate to be so formal, but I need a motion to adjourn.